The first thing Marceline Vale saw when she walked into her kitchen that afternoon was her janitor holding a pencil in one hand and gently wiping tears from her daughter's cheek with the other. For a moment, the billionaire froze. The man she had hired to clean floors and empty trash cans was sitting beside 9-year-old Sienna at the long oak table, surrounded by math worksheets. Her daughter, who had spent months shutting down whenever numbers appeared in front of her, was actually smiling. And the janitor was calmly teaching her a problem that even her expensive private tutors had failed to explain. But what Marceline discovered about the quiet man named Rourke later that night would change the way she looked at wealth, courage, and second chances forever. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness can change a life and that everyone deserves a second chance, please like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Marceline Vale had everything money could buy. She owned a technology empire, lived in a mansion overlooking the city, and appeared on magazine covers as one of the most successful women in America. But behind the tall glass windows and polished marble floors, her life was painfully quiet. 3 years earlier, her husband had died suddenly, leaving her to raise Sienna alone. Since then, Marceline had thrown herself into work, believing that if she could build a billion-dollar company, she could somehow solve every problem in her daughter's life too. When Sienna began struggling at school, Marceline hired the best tutors money could find. Yet every lesson ended the same way. Sienna would stare at the numbers, become frustrated, and whisper that she was stupid. Rourke had worked at the Vale estate for only 6 months. He was quiet, punctual, and invisible in the way people often expected janitors to be. He arrived before sunrise, wore a simple navy work shirt, and never complained. Marceline barely knew anything about him. She only knew that he had once asked for an extra shift and that he always left a small portion of his lunch untouched, which he later gave to a stray dog that waited near the service gate. To Marceline, he was simply another employee. But Sienna had noticed something different. One rainy afternoon, while Rourke was cleaning near the study, she had been crying over her homework. Instead of telling her to stop or calling for one of the tutors, he had sat down at a distance and asked her to show him where the problem became confusing. He did not give her the answer. He drew little squares, folded a piece of paper, and turned numbers into patterns she could see. Slowly, Sienna understood. The next day, she waited for him. When Marceline saw them together, anger flashed through her. She thought he had crossed a boundary. She almost called security. But then she heard Sienna laugh, a sound that had become rare since her father died. Rourke looked up and immediately stood, apologizing for stepping beyond his duties. He explained that Sienna had asked for help and he simply did not have the heart to leave her crying. Marceline wanted to remind him that he was a janitor, not a teacher. Instead, she looked at the worksheet. Every answer was correct. That evening, curiosity replaced her anger. Marceline asked Rourke to explain where he had learned mathematics. He hesitated before quietly saying that he had learned many things during his previous life. When she pressed further, he politely changed the subject. A week later, Marceline discovered why. She had been searching through old employment records when she noticed a gap of nearly 15 years in Rourke's history. His background check contained only a few vague details. Something did not feel right. Through a contact, she requested a deeper search. The information that came back left her staring at the screen in silence. Rourke Hale had once been a highly decorated Navy SEAL. He had served on missions that were never publicly discussed. He had received commendations for bravery, advanced training in engineering, navigation, medicine, and survival. But after a mission overseas, he had returned home carrying injuries no one could see. He lost friends. His marriage fell apart. He struggled to sleep and eventually walked away from everything connected to his former life. For years, he moved from job to job, refusing interviews and turning down opportunities that reminded him of the man he had once been. Marceline confronted him the next morning. Rourke did not deny it. He simply asked her not to make a big deal out of something he wanted to leave behind. But Marceline finally understood something about him. He had not become a janitor because he lacked intelligence or ability. He had chosen a quiet life because, after everything he had seen, quiet was the only thing he knew how to survive. Then came the moment that changed them both. Sienna entered the regional math competition at school. She was terrified and wanted to quit the night before. Marceline found her crying, convinced she would embarrass herself. Rourke happened to be finishing his shift when he saw her. He did not tell her that Navy SEALs never quit. He did not give her some dramatic speech. He simply sat beside her and reminded her of every problem she had once believed she could never solve. The next day, Sienna did not win first place. She came in third. But when she stepped off the stage holding her small bronze medal, she ran past her mother's outstretched arms and straight into Rourke's. Then she turned around and pulled Marceline into the hug too. For the first time, the billionaire understood that her daughter had never needed the most expensive teacher in the city. She needed patience. She needed someone who believed in her before she believed in herself. And Rourke needed something too. He needed to know that his life was not over simply because one chapter had ended. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps more stories of hope, compassion, and second chances reach people who may need them today. Marceline later offered Rourke a position managing a scholarship program for children from struggling families. At first, he refused. He said he was only a janitor. Marceline smiled and told him that was exactly the problem with labels. People saw the uniform and assumed they knew the person inside it. Months later, Sienna placed her first math medal beside a framed photograph of her father. Underneath it was a handwritten note that read, "I'm not stupid. I just needed someone to teach me differently." And beside that note stood Rourke, no longer hiding from his past, but no longer trapped inside it either. Before the ending, leave a comment saying, "One act of kindness can change everything," if you believe that sometimes the person the world overlooks is the very person someone else needs most. Because in the end, Marceline Vale did not discover a Navy SEAL hiding behind a janitor's uniform. She discovered a wounded man who had forgotten his own worth, and a little girl who reminded him that even after the darkest battles, a person can still find a reason to serve, to teach, to love, and to begin again.